Everyone knows how Titanic ended, but most people don't know the strange details surrounding its final voyage. There were warnings about ice, nearby ships or its distress signals. The lookouts had no binoculars, and some parts of Titanic are still sitting deep beneath the ocean today. Others are mysteries that people still debate. So let's look at 10 secrets of the Titanic. Number 10. The unsinkable ship. Before Titanic began its first voyage, people were amazed by how large and advanced it was. It was one of the biggest passenger ships in the world. It had luxurious rooms, restaurants, elevators, and even a swimming pool. Because of its design, Titanic gained a reputation for being extremely safe. People sometimes called it practically unsinkable. But on April 14, 1912, everything changed. Titanic hit an iceberg in the middle of the Atlantic. Within a few hours, the ship was gone. More than 1,500 people lost their lives. The irony is chilling. A ship that was considered one of the safest ever built became one of the most famous shipwrecks in history. And that leads to an important question. How did something so massive disappear so quickly? Number 9. The missing binoculars. One of the strangest details of the Titanic story involves the men watching for ice. They were called lookouts. Their job was simple: look ahead and warn the bridge if they saw danger. But that night, the lookouts reportedly didn't have binoculars available. Instead, they had to search the dark ocean with their eyes, and the night was extremely difficult. There was little moonlight, the sea was unusually calm, and there were no large waves breaking around the iceberg to make it easier to spot. Then, suddenly, the lookout saw something, an iceberg. He immediately sounded the warning. The ship turned, but Titanic was already too close. Could binoculars have helped? Nobody knows. But one thing is certain: the lookouts had only seconds to react. Number 8. The ship that saw Titanic. Now here's something that sounds like it belongs in a movie. Another ship was in the area that night. It was called the SS Californian. The Californian was relatively close to Titanic. Its crew reportedly saw strange lights and rockets in the distance. Those rockets were coming from Titanic. They were distress signals, but the crew didn't fully understand what they were seeing. The Californian's wireless operator had also stopped working for the night, so the ship didn't immediately realize Titanic was in serious trouble. By the time the situation became clear, Titanic had already disappeared. For more than a century, people have asked the same question: could the Californian have saved more people? Historians still debate exactly what could have happened. Number 7. The ice warning they ignored. Titanic wasn't completely unaware of the danger. Before the collision, the ship received several warnings about ice. Other ships were reporting icebergs and dangerous conditions in the area. Some of those warnings reached Titanic, but the ship continued moving through the Atlantic. Then, just before midnight, the lookout spotted the iceberg. There was almost no time. The crew tried to turn the ship away, but Titanic was too large and moving too fast to avoid it completely. The iceberg scraped along the side of the ship. At first, many passengers didn't even realize what had happened. Some felt only a small vibration, but below the waterline, the damage was already serious. Water began entering the ship, and Titanic had only a few hours left. Number 6. Why Titanic couldn't turn. Here's something that makes the collision even more frightening. The iceberg wasn't easy to see that night. The ocean was unusually calm. That might sound like good weather, but it actually made the iceberg harder to spot. Normally, waves would crash against an iceberg and create white water around it. That could help someone see it from a distance. But that night, the sea was almost like glass. The iceberg blended into the darkness. The lookout finally spotted it, but he had only seconds to react. He shouted the warning. The ship turned, but the iceberg was already directly ahead. Titanic hit it at around 11:40 p.m., and from that moment, the clock was ticking. Number 5. Titanic had a secret pool. Now let's take a break from the disaster, because Titanic wasn't just a ship, it was basically a floating luxury hotel. And yes, Titanic had a swimming pool. First-class passengers could use it while crossing the Atlantic. The pool was filled with seawater. There were also luxurious baths, a gym, and other facilities that were extremely impressive for 1912. Think about that for a moment. People were swimming inside Titanic while the ship crossed the Atlantic. Today, that same ship is sitting nearly 4,000 meters underwater. The pool is still part of the wreck. A place that was once filled with wealthy passengers is now sitting in complete darkness at the bottom of the ocean. Number 4. The band kept playing. As Titanic began sinking, panic spread across the ship. People were trying to reach the lifeboats. Families were looking for each other. Passengers were frightened, but something strange was happening nearby. The ship's musicians reportedly continued playing. Their music was meant to keep passengers calm. Imagine standing on the deck of a sinking ship while music is playing around you. The ship was getting lower. The ocean was getting closer, and the musicians kept playing. Exactly what they played during the final moments has been debated, but their story became one of the most famous parts of the disaster. They were not able to stop the sinking, but for frightened passengers, the music may have provided a few moments of calm during one of the darkest nights in maritime history. Number 3. The rockets nobody understood. Titanic knew it was in serious trouble. The crew needed help, so they began sending rockets into the night sky, one rocket after another. Bright flashes could be seen from far away. And remember the Californian, its crew reportedly saw those rockets, but they didn't immediately understand what they meant. From a distance, it wasn't obvious that Titanic was sinking. The rockets continued. Meanwhile, Titanic's wireless operators were desperately sending distress messages. Other ships were trying to respond, but the ocean was huge, and Titanic was running out of time. Eventually, the final lifeboats were gone. The ship was almost completely dark. Then Titanic disappeared beneath the Atlantic, the rocket stopped, and the night became silent. Number 2. Titanic is disappearing. Titanic has been underwater for more than 100 years, but the wreck isn't staying the same. It's slowly disappearing. Tiny organisms are eating away at the metal. Rust is spreading across the ship. Parts of the structure are collapsing. Rooms that once held passengers are slowly being destroyed. The deeper parts of the wreck are especially difficult to explore, and every year, Titanic becomes more fragile. Scientists believe that eventually, much of the ship will collapse. One day, the famous Titanic wreck may look completely different from the way it looks today. The ship that once seemed almost impossible to destroy is now slowly being erased by the ocean. Number 1. The last hour of Titanic. And finally, there's one mystery that may never be completely solved. What exactly happened during Titanic's final hours? We know the basic story. Titanic hit the iceberg, water entered the ship, lifeboats were launched, the bow sank lower, and eventually, Titanic disappeared beneath the Atlantic. But every person experienced those final hours differently. Some passengers didn't understand the danger at first. Others rushed toward the lifeboats. Some families stayed together, some people helped strangers, and many never had the chance to tell their stories. Survivors later described what they saw, but their memories were not always the same. That's why, even after more than 100 years, people are still trying to understand exactly what happened during Titanic's final moments. Which Titanic secret surprised you the most? Tell me in the comments and follow for the next story.